Hey guys, James from SIKKY Manufacturing. On this episode of our E30 LS turnkey build, I'm going to get you up to date with some of the things we've been working on the past couple weeks and go over those modifications and some stuff that's actually a work in progress as far as development for solutions that we didn't offer prior to this build, and just some things that are going to make this install a lot easier for you guys doing it in your backyard down the road, and just simplify some systems and upgrades that need to be done while you're doing the swap in an E30. Alright, so you can see on this particular build, the customer wanted to run the Hydro Boost setup that we currently manufacture. We did do the install. We didn't cover the installation of it because it's something we're actually going to be phasing out. When they're sold out, that's the last one we're going to be selling and making. And maybe down the road we might revisit it and make a different version, but at this point we didn't want to highlight the install of it because it's not something we're going to continue to carry. So the other option is the booster delete that we sell, which completely eliminates the booster, and utilizing the factory master cylinder, it still has a favorable pedal pressure where it's not like you're breaking your leg trying to depress the brakes and make the car stop. So if you're doing this swap, the easiest, cheapest method is to go with the SIKKY booster delete, and that utilizes your factory master cylinder. But yeah, this install is actually incorporated into the power steering. So this Hydro Boost uses this power steering pressure to actually depress the brakes when you step on with your pedal. So this kit has power steering lines and the booster lines all incorporated together with the brake lines that tap into your ABS module. So it's an all-inclusive kit that covers the top to bottom, but it is quite the installation and takes a lot of time, so it's definitely like a 8 out of 10 on the install meter. The other thing that we haven't addressed yet that you might have noticed if you've done this swap before is the heater core lines. Part of that reason is that we actually had to get our own silicone tight 90s made that fit this application. So we're in the process of putting this into a line kit basically, which is going to be two real tight 90s that'll get you up to here, and then we're going to have another formed 90 that hooks into that, so then you can use any heater core line and run that from there up to the water pump outlets, and makes the job really simple. And as soon as they come in, like I said, we actually had them made. We're going to do that install and show you guys how to do that. It's pretty simple, but the one modification to note that you'd probably want to do if you're watching this video series before the install, before you put the engine in, you're going to want to trim these factory heater core lines a little bit shorter. And you can see we actually flared the end of the tube out so it has similar look and function to a factory heater core line, but they are a good amount shorter. I mean, these are probably protruding about 1 inch from the firewall, which, as you can see, still gives you enough room to get our tight 90s on there and get the lines up to about this height. So it makes that install pretty simple. But like I said, we'll cover that in a future episode, the actual install of that, but just get you up to speed. We have been working on that. It's just can't show much progress because we're waiting on these lines to be manufactured in more of a mass production instead of one at a time. As you can see, we have a radiator in here currently. This is just an aftermarket radiator that's meant for a stock E30. Again, it fits the chassis, but it doesn't really fit the application. So we're actually making a SIKKY radiator for this swap just to make that portion and the coolant system really easy for anyone doing this install. So it's going to be dual pass with an inlet and outlet on the passenger side, and we're also going to make some silicone radiator lines. So this particular car is going to get like a prototype version, but we're going to use that prototype to make the production version that will be available for sale when it's complete on our website and through our dealers network. So long story short on that, it's going to take some more time, but in the next episode we'll have this thing modified and in its proper position with the proper inlet and outlets, so it'll function great with this LS motor in the E30. As you can see, guys, we actually have the transmission back out of this thing. Luckily we left the bell housing on, so it makes the removal a lot easier. But the reason is we actually made an E30 specific clutch master cylinder kit. So it's basically the lines and the fittings that go to the slave cylinder and utilizes the factory E30 clutch master cylinder. So it'll make that install real easy. In previous episodes, we put our regular master cylinder kit that's utilized in some of the other chassis we make kits for, but this one was totally different as far as the fitting on the end of the line in order for it to bolt up and work with your factory E30 master cylinder. So it came back out to get this line in, and we're in the process of putting it all back together now. So we'll cover that shortly, and have that functioning master cylinder in here very soon. All right, as you can see, last episode we actually put this back together with factory axles. Now there's drive shaft shop stage 5s in it. So the customer changed his mind and wanted to upgrade the axles while we were in here. So we went back and took them out. Unfortunately, it wasn't as easy an install as it should have been, because the factory axles were literally rusted to the hubs to the point where they almost became one. The axle nut, once we took all the stuff apart and figured it out, the axle nut was actually gone. And we had to torch, chisel, beat the crap out of everything just to get the factory axles. I had to put brand new BMW hubs back in this thing because everything was so rusted to bits. And so it was a good thing that we ended up taking it all apart, much like the fuel lines we found were just really bad and worn out and cracked. So these hubs definitely would have failed at some point with this added horsepower and torque that we're making. Also, you can see we put a sway bar on this thing as well. So we upgraded the sway bar, stiffen up the rear a little bit. Another way to help cope with some of the extra power and cornering abilities this thing's going to have. So quite a bit done. Again, sorry we didn't get to document this stuff. Things have been super busy around here, guys, and this is the best we could do on it. But these are in, ready to rock. So we're going to move on to the rest of the stuff. So while we had the transmission out, while we were changing out the clutch slave cylinder line for our specific E30 slave kit, we decided to eliminate this reverse lockout and the CAGs, just because they create a lot of clearance issues. Like, this is really tight in the tunnel. It's not needed. I mean, yeah, if you're going from 5th to 6th and you accidentally hit reverse, you've got major issues, but it's not a problem in most situations. So keep that in mind if you are going to eliminate it, that you are eliminating that feature. But most of the time it just makes it a real pain in the butt to get it in reverse, and it's just not needed in our opinion. So use your best judgment on that, but we recommend you get rid of it. So we're going to show you the install on slapping this in here. It's pretty simple, and it's well worth the time investment. All right, so first step, I'm going to get this reverse lockout solenoid out of the way. Then we're going to take the plug provided in the SIKKY kit and line it up nice and flat. Alright, so it looks pretty good. You just want to tap it till it gets to the end of that bevel that's on the inside of the hole. So next we're going to move on to removing the CAGs, or skip shift, whatever you want to call it. Alright, so now you're going to take the plug and the O-ring provided in the SIKKY kit and install it where the CAGs unit once was. Just thread it in finger tight. Doesn't take a lot of torque on this. We're just really just crushing the O-ring slightly, but it'll tighten up when it hits metal on metal, and a couple light taps. So there's not really much pressure or anything in here, so it's just to keep the oil from dripping out and not making a mess all over the bottom of your car. Alright guys, so that's a wrap on this installment of the Project LS E30 turnkey build. We didn't have as much wrenching as we'd like to show you in our videos as we usually have, so we're going to make sure we do a little better on that next time around. But like I said in the beginning, we've got a lot of prototype work, R&D, and development that was happening, which is a lot of that's behind the scenes. So hopefully the next episode or two we'll be able to show you the actual installation of some of those parts we're working on, the prototype radiator and coolant lines for both the heater core and the radiator itself. So a lot of stuff will start to happen on that, and make sure you subscribe, click on the bell so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for watching.